Okay, good afternoon, class, and welcome back to English for Academic and Professional Purposes. As we begin this class, let's first have our prayer. Almighty and Heavenly Father, we thank you once again for gathering us this afternoon to explore about this gift you've given us called language. May this particular language unite those who find it difficult to communicate with other people. May be able to use our knowledge of English in our present studies and in our future career. We lift up to you all the people who are helping us in one way or another to be able to have a good education, especially our parents, our institution, our community. All of this we lift up to you in the holy name of Jesus. Amen. Okay, so once again, good afternoon. And again, my apologies for giving you this afternoon also an asynchronous presentation of lesson number 4. So after this lesson, we'll be meeting again synchronously in real time. But for the meantime, for the first lesson this afternoon, I have recorded this presentation, and one advantage of it is, of course, you can access it again when you need it for your future review, especially for the coming first quarterly exam. Okay, so just like what I did yesterday, first I would like to commend our top-notchers in our first mid-quarterly exam. Okay, so let's congratulate and give a virtual clap for Kelry Pagkaliwagan for getting 37 out of 40, for Kay Ibalida for getting 36 out of 40, and Ralph Christian Guerrero for scoring 35 out of 40. Again, everybody got a good score, but these three got the highest scores. Okay, so keep it up, and of course, you still have your quarterly exam wherein I hope you will get the better scores. Okay, so once again, congratulations. Now, there's some concerns about English. Okay, in the past days, there have been debates about the importance of speaking in Filipino, because there are people who would like to kind of proposed to stop using Taglish. But if we'll kind of notice it in reality, in actual life of Filipinos, the dominant form of language is actually Taglish. When we find it difficult to say something, or for example, a term in Filipino, in Tagalog, we suddenly shift to English. Okay, so I hope you also have your stand about it, but I go with those who would say that if you speak in Tagalog, then speak in straight Tagalog or straight Filipino. And if you speak in English, you also have to be able to speak in straight English. Okay, but in some circumstances, I also agree with some experts who would say that you can also speak in straight Taglish. It depends really on the situation, but hopefully you will have opportunity. You also can speak in straight English. Okay, so maybe most of the times they're speaking in Taglish, but hopefully you also have experiences and you can speak in straight English. So this is a recent issue, and hopefully this will challenge us all the more to kind of develop our ability in speaking English. Okay, so just some concerns if we really would like to kind of improve our English. The first piece of advice that I will give you is to go back to basics. I've noticed this, maybe not much, not really in your class, but in other students in our school, that some students find it difficult to express themselves in English because they forget the basics. Okay, when I say basics, I am kind of referring to the simple kind of agreement between subject and verb, the use of punctuations, the use of proper capitalization. If you remember, these are the first lessons that have been taught to us when we were in elementary, which words to capitalize. Okay, sometimes even the pronoun I in write-ups, in answers, in exam are not even capitalized. And sometimes when I give instructions to give or answer in 3 sentences, what I would get will be a very long paragraph wherein I do not know where to stop or to pause because there are no punctuations, but it expresses several ideas in a single complex compound sentence paragraph. So go back to basics. Okay, observe those little details because these are the things that English teachers would really check on. Okay, so if in math it will be the characters, the numbers, the figures, the numerator, denominator. For English teachers, it will be this details, minute details that it will be checking always in your output, especially. Okay, so the second thing that I will give you as a piece of advice is to read, read, read. Okay, so yesterday when I was asking you in 21st century literature, if you're familiar with the particular work or if you have plans of writing in the future, if you have uh, experience of reading novels, I do not really receive much of a positive note, positive response. Okay, so one of the things that I see here is that we might be forgetting the importance of reading. But based on experience, personally, I can assure you that reading can improve our vocabulary, can teach us a lot of ways of expressing ourselves. And so please do read, okay? And also, when we speak about this particular language, we have to uh, kind of be we should be using specific strategies, techniques. We should follow techniques in order for us to facilitate the way we express ourselves. Okay, so sometimes the use of idiomatic expressions, figures of speech can make our write-ups colorful. Okay, so those are added embellishments, but from time to time, it will be also good to try using this kind of colorful language. Okay, so I do not have the luxury of time to be with you going back to basics. Okay, because we have limited time, but of course, from time to time, I can give you materials which you can read, you can practice on to be able to review and somehow improve your English. Okay, so I hope that I am getting across that you get my point in sharing these things. Now, as for the lessons and the schedule for this first quarter, we only have this meeting. That's why I tried my best. I'm trying my best to finish all the topics for the first quarter. And that's the reason also why I decided to record this lesson number 4 so that we can cover all these 3 topics. Okay, so lesson 4 is about various techniques in summarizing a variety of academic texts. Lesson 5 will be about thesis statement, and lesson 6 will be about outlining. Okay, so this again are the coverage that you'll expect in our first quarterly exam scheduled from September 26 to 29. Okay, so just to focus on these 3 lessons: techniques in summarizing, thesis statement, and outlining. In one way or another, they are very much connected to each other. And of course, my hope is that whatever we're learning in this subject, we'll be able to apply it in all other outputs wherein we are asked to kind of, for example, summarize an article, an essay, okay, or wherein we are asked to kind of write a simple kind of uh, abstract of particular term paper write-up, then hopefully these topics this afternoon will be of great help to all of us. Okay, so let's have a very quick review of our first meeting, the lessons in our first meeting. So if you still remember, it focused on academic text, academic language, academic writing, and we also ended our class last time by kind of familiarizing ourselves with what we call reading strategies. Okay, so and we said that reading strategy should be should be based on the purpose of a reading. Okay, it will be the purpose of a reading that will dictate what kind of reading strategy we should use. Okay, and we enumerated the 3 most commonly used techniques or strategies used in reading. We have scanning, skimming, and intensive reading. Okay, so hopefully with that lesson, you're able to remind yourself, because some of you said you have encountered this already in your other subjects. So hopefully it reminded you that there are techniques in reading materials so that you will not waste time. Instead, you will be able to save time with the proper strategy depending on your purpose. Okay, so that's where we ended last time, and this will still be very helpful as we move along in our English for academic and professional purposes, because from time to time, I will ask you to read materials. Okay, so let's now move on to the lesson proper for this afternoon, lesson 4. And it's all about various techniques in summarizing a variety of academic texts. And for our content standard, the expectation is that we will acquire knowledge of appropriate reading strategies for a better understanding of academic text. Okay, so that will still be very important, because before we summarize, we're able to summarize, write up a written work. First, we should have read it, and we should have understood it. Okay, so still, the reading technique is connected and relevant in summarizing. Okay, and then the performance standard would be to produce a detailed abstract of information gathered from the various academic texts read. So since we have very limited time, and I know you have a lot of things to accomplish, what I'll ask you to do in one of your performance tests is to kind of make a summary or an abstract of just a single text and not of several texts. So that somehow simplifies the process and your task. As for the learning competency, this lesson aims to teach the learners how to use various techniques in summarizing a variety of academic texts. Okay, so there are many kinds of academic texts, just like there are many literary genres. Okay, so we should be equipped with the summarizing techniques, whatever kind of material is given to us. Okay, so but before we go to the specific techniques and tips how to summarize articles, essays, okay, critiques, let's first have some description of summarizing. What do you mean by the term summarizing? So Buckley in 2004 had this sweet description about summarizing. Summarizing is reducing text to 1/3 or 1/4 its original size, clearly articulating the author's meaning and retaining main ideas. Okay, I would like to underscore in this description, of course, the length that is expected after we summarize a text should be 1/3 or 1/4 of its original size. 1/4 of its original size. Okay, so don't be tempted to put a lot of embellishments and explanations, so much so that after summarizing, your summary would appear longer than the original text. Okay, it should not be the case. Okay, it should be a lot shorter than the original, but okay, according to Buckley, it should still express fluently and coherently the main idea of the author, the original meaning intended by the author. Okay, not you as the one who summarizes, but the original author. What does he want to impart to his or her audience? Okay, so make sure that you retain the main ideas, and the implication is that you should have read the article thoroughly and that you should have understood it properly, and you were able to identify what we call main ideas. Okay, another description is from the Jan Hacker, and she said, or she wrote, summarizing involves stating a work's thesis and main idea simply, briefly, and accurately. Okay, lesson 5 will be about this statement, but simply put, thesis is a statement or theory that is put forward as a premise to be maintained or proved. Okay, this when you say thesis and main ideas, it's what is being kind of proposed by the writer. Okay, so we have to state the thesis, we have to state that main idea, but we should do it simply, briefly, and accurately. Okay, we should not distort the original idea of the author. Okay, simply would imply the usage of words that are not that difficult to understand. Briefly will be, of course, referring to a lesser number of words or paragraphs, and accurately would refer to the correctness, exactness of the summary. Okay, that you should not contradict the original text. Okay, as for the different dictionaries, if we'll try to put them together, this will be what we'll get. This is what we'll get. Summarizing is taking a lot of information and creating a condensed version that covers the main points and to express the most important facts or ideas about something or someone in a short and clear form. So just like in the previous description, we encounter here a condensed version, shorter, okay, a number of words and number of paragraphs, and then still containing the main points. So if we'll try to kind of compare these three descriptions, that's what we'll get. No? It should be shorter. Okay, a summary should be shorter, but still containing the main ideas or the main points of the original text. Okay, so various techniques in summarizing a variety of academic texts. So how do we summarize a long article or an essay? So here are some specific tips on how to do it, what things to emphasize and what things to avoid. Okay, so number 1, read the work first to understand the author's intent. This is a crucial step because an incomplete reading could lead to an inaccurate summary. Okay, so read the whole thing first before you start summarizing it. Okay, so we have the saying, a text taken out of context is a pretext, it's a pretension. If you kind of summarize a thing or get an idea, present an idea without considering the surrounding circumstances. That's what we mean by context. And from time to time in television, people who have been accused or being accused would be defending themselves by saying, I am taken out of context. That means people or the media, people may not have considered all the other things that he has said, but just focus on a single passage, single sentence, and the kind of elaborated it without considering the other statements that he has given before or after that particular statement. Okay, so in reading, that also applies. We have to consider everything in the text before we summarize it. We should have understood clearly the main point that the author would like to impart. Okay, so somehow we should have an idea why the author wrote this article or this essay. What is it for? Okay. We also have that the maxim which says little knowledge is dangerous. Okay, so again, this tip number 1 is inviting us, challenging us, and reminding us to read first the work before before you summarize it. If you have not understood it in your first reading, reread it. Okay, just to be exact, just to be accurate with your summary. Number 2, one of the summarization techniques you can do is to present information through facts, skills, and concept in visual formats. You can provide the cause and effects charts, timelines, and Venn diagrams, templates for outlines, use flowcharts or infographics. Okay, so this is one way of kind of picturing the whole document, the whole text in another way using this different formats. Venn diagram, of course, if you have compare contrast thing, Venn diagram will be very helpful. If it's kind of a historical chronological presentation, a timeline will be very helpful. Okay, so it depends really on the kind of material that you have in hand, which particular format, visual format you will be using. But of course, infographics nowadays are very much used. Some students would really resort to this, and instead of just simple words or notes under notebooks, what you'll get or what you'll see are infographics. So it kinds of help to kind of summarize also the ideas and to easily recall the main points of the discussion, for example, in a classroom setting. So you can also use that, okay? I would use that when I was still studying, okay? Kind of put some images, some symbols that can facilitate my reading and my review, okay? Or when I reread the article, okay? So use visual formats. Okay, number 3, to avoid difficulty, you need first to know the main points and the supporting details. You can exclude any illustrations, examples, or explanations. It's kind of eliminating the embellishments so that you will get the substance. You will get the core message of the article. So that requires a particular keen in the details, a particular ability to see and to focus your attention on the more important things being kind of presented by the author of the text. Okay, so the important words to remember here are the main points and the supporting details. As you scan, as you read the article, hopefully you're starting to kind of form an image structure, at least a framework of that particular article in your head. Okay, so if you do that, if you read and if you practice this several times, you will kind of develop this particular ability, wherein by simple reading or by first reading an article, you can readily kind of identify the format, the structure, how the writer kind of structured or formed the overall form or structure of the essay. Okay, so it takes time, but that's possible if that you can easily see at once the main points and the supporting details, and which are just embellishments or just additional explanations. In number 4, you need to analyze the text to save time in thinking what you will do. Okay, so that you will not erase several times your summary or change it after reading it. You're not satisfied and you'll be wasting time. So you really need to have your focus on the essay, try to understand it deeper, so that when you do your summary, you will have a very, very minimal kind of changes that you need to do in your summary, because you really captured the heart of the text. Okay, so you need to analyze. You really have to see the minute details and how they are put and together by the original author. Okay, so that's to save time in thinking what you will do, so that you will have at least you will have at once a good summary in mind. You don't need to revise it twice, 3 times. Sometimes even when we put names on our on our document, we say final summary, and then after a while you read it, you're not satisfied, you're not happy with your work, you put final na to, and then you read it and you will still notice that there's no coherence in your work, and then you say totoo na to, final na talaga. So we name our documents that way because perhaps we have not analyzed well yet the article before we started writing a summary about it. So again, to save time, analyze the text. Number 5, think what information you will put in your summary. Be sure to cover the main points and arguments of the document. So as the one who summarizes, you have the power to choose which ones to include. But again, make sure that what you include are the more relevant ideas. Okay, so it's possible instead of presenting the main idea, you might be focusing on some other details which are actually minute, small details, maybe because of our bias, because we can relate to it, but maybe it's not the main idea of the author. Okay, so again, what's important is what the original author would like to emphasize, and not you, not your bias, not your prejudices. Okay, so we really have to study the text and to see where all of them gravitate. Okay, to what particular idea do they really connect to, and maybe most probably that's the main idea. Okay, number 6, one of the best things to do is auto summarizing is restating the words into different one. You should avoid using the original words of the author. Instead, use your own vocabulary, but be sure to retain the information. Okay, so this is one way of paraphrasing, but of course, we acknowledge the original author, but again, this will require some knowledge about synonyms. Sometimes you can even use antonyms if you would like to present the opposite, or we would like to use the opposite terminology, then antonyms will also be helpful. But still, the main idea should be retained. Okay, so that's one thing that we can do in summarizing or restating using different words, but make sure that the words that we use are really tantamount the original ones, and not the opposite of the original text. Okay, so it really will require us to have a good knowledge of vocabulary, especially of synonyms, of particular terminologies. Okay, number 7, you will fully understand what the document is when you organize all ideas. Okay, so once you've read it, you have taken down notes, you have kind of used your visual formats, you have presented or somehow so the structure, the main form of the text. Then if you try to put them together, you will see that there is a particular direction where everything is going to. Then that's the time when you can say that you fully understood that the article or the text. Okay, so when you are able to organize all ideas and they all make sense. So hopefully we will see the overall design of the text when we read it. And number 8, one of the things you can do is to write down all information in a coherent and precise form. Keep in mind that a summary is a condensed version of the original paper, so avoid making it long. Sometimes in trying to use synonyms, okay, it might bring us to use vocabularies that are longer, okay, that we end up with a longer version of the original text. Okay, so we write down the important information, but let's kind of shorten it and make it clearer by presenting the ideas in coherent and precise form. It will require from us the use of very specific terminologies, maybe specific verb, specific descriptors or adjectives, so that we can really shorten the number of words in our original text. Okay, so number 9, you can also decide to represent information through using dimensional constructions in representing concepts, skills, or facts. Okay, in science maybe, or in other fields, when we speak of dimension, we are talking of the measurable extent of a particular thing. Okay, maybe the length, the breadth, the the depth or the height of a material. But when it comes to an essay or written work, when we speak about dimension, we are talking of the range. Okay, for example, how comprehensive is a particular essay? What does it cover? Is it only about female? Is it about male? Is it about both male and female? Is it about the millennials? Is it about the senior citizens? So we have to be clarified of those dimensions also, or the limitations, or the, the parameters or the boundaries of a particular text that we are studying. That can somehow also kind of keep us from going beyond, because the moment when we go beyond the parameters, we go beyond the dimension, we might be already adding a lot of details that were not really supposed to be there, because they have not been intended by the author. Okay, that's why he put dimensions on his work, because he would like just to limit to talk about a particular specific group, a specific topic. So when we go beyond it, there is a danger that really our summary will be longer than the original text. And number 10, paraphrasing is one of the skills you can do in writing a summary. With it, you do not use the same words with the author. Okay, so it depends. Sometimes the vocabulary that we will use may be longer or shorter. Okay, but just make sure that it has the same sense as the original text. Okay. Now we move on to 5 easy techniques in summarizing various academic texts. Okay, Some of them are literary texts, and these are helpful techniques. Okay, so the first 10 that I presented are specific tips, but these ones are specific techniques. They are a group of ideas that have been arranged accordingly so that we can connect ideas in a manner that will be that will give us a very good kind of summary of the original text. Okay, so there are 5 techniques that I would like to share with you, and hopefully we will be able to utilize this in our other subjects. Okay, so the first one is called somebody wanted but so then. Okay, so please do memorize technique number 1. Okay, the sequence, the arrangement of the words would matter. Okay, so somebody wanted but so then. Okay, so what do these words refer to? Okay, so this technique number 1, okay, for the technique number 1, somebody will be talking about the character, okay, who is the story about, okay, that the particular character that the story is revolving in rather. And number 2, wanted, will be referring to the main character. What does the main character want? Okay, so kindly correct that. What does the main character want? Okay, what will be identify a problem that the main character encountered. Okay, so that's a challenge that the character encountered. Number 4, so how does the main character solve the problem? Okay, and then 5, then tell how the story ends. So I have this grade 3, my son who is in grade 3, and they are doing this in MTB, MLE, one of their subjects. They should identify the character, the setting, the beginning, the end of a particular document. It is basically the same thing that is being asked from us in using somebody wanted but so then. Okay, so it's one way of summarizing, especially narratives. So if you have a story, it can be a biblical story, it can be a story from a book. Okay, this is a very good technique to use, wherein we'll be able to put in the most important details, okay, without kind of getting rid of the core or the important events in the story. Okay, so we have here an example, so just we can better understand the technique. Okay, for example, let's use the familiar story from this technique 1 up to technique 5. We'll be using uh, familiar stories so that we can easily relate the technique and easily understand it. Okay, for example, Little Red Riding Hood. So the somebody, okay, the who is the story about. So this the answer to the question is it's about Little Red Riding Hood. And what does she want? She wanted to take cookies to her sick grandmother. But what was a challenge? In Tagalog, ano yung naging problema? She encountered a wolf pretending to be her grandmother. So what did she do? She ran away crying for help. And then, so what's the end of the story? A woodsman heard her and saved her from the wolf. Okay, so that's the ending. So after answering these 5 questions, somebody wanted, but so then, we can start combining the answers to form the summary. Okay, so Little Red Riding Hood wanted to take cookies to her sick grandmother, but she encountered a wolf. He got to her grandmother's house first and pretended to be the old woman. He was going to eat Little Red Riding Hood, but she realized what he was doing and ran away, crying for help. A woodsman heard the girl's cries and saved her from the wolf. So instead of a two full-page story, you only have a single paragraph that already covers the important details and events in the story. Okay, but sorry, of course, we have to consider in using technique number one, again, the kind of narrative. This may not be applicable to all kinds of text, but in a narrative and a story, this is very helpful. So remember, technique number one, somebody wanted, but so then. A technique number two is called SAAC, or SAAC method, if you would like to pronounce it that way. So this method is again, very useful for summarizing any kind of text, not only narratives, but even articles and speeches. Okay, so this SAAC is an acronym for state, assign, action, complete. But of course, those four words stand for specific meaning. When you say state, name of the article, book, or story. Okay, so we have here a different emphasis. If in the technique number one, you have the character, this time it's the title of the book, the article, or the story. Then assign is the name of the author who wrote it. So if, for example, you become teacher, so you would like your students to make a summary that mentions the name of the book and the author, then you may use the SAAC method. The number three, action, what the author is doing. Is the author telling? Is the author explaining through the work? Is the author disseminating information? Okay, so the focus is on the author, the title, the author. Okay, and number four, complete, will be the sentence or summary with keywords and important details. So this method is particularly helpful for students who are learning the format of a summary and need reminders to include the title and the author's name. So pag kailangan ng pangalan, if you need to mention the name of the author, the title of the work, then use the SAAC method. Okay, let's have an example, again, a familiar one. Okay, so here is an example of SAAC in action. So state, again, the title of the work, The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Okay, assign the author, Aesop, a Greek storyteller, and the action of the author is that he's telling a story. And complete, what happens when a shepherd boy repeatedly lies to the villagers about seeing a wolf. So after kind of identifying the state, assign, action, complete parts, then you can put them together and make the summary already of your article story. So it will go like something like this. The Boy Who Cried Wolf by Aesop, a Greek storyteller, tells what happens when a shepherd boy repeatedly lies to the villagers about seeing a wolf. After a while, they ignore his false cries. Then when a wolf really does attack, they don't come to help him. The end. Okay, so it's a very good summary that includes the author, the title of the book, and the main point of the story. Okay, so hopefully by going through these examples, you're already kind of identifying what particular works, assignments you can use these techniques. Okay, number three is more familiar to us. We might have encountered it somewhere in our studies of especially of English. For those who are into journalism, for those who are into school paper, you might have studied about this technique, the 5 W's and 1 H, especially if we are writing a news article. Okay, so the 5 W's and 1 H strategy relies on 6 crucial questions. Okay, so who, what, when, where, why, and the 1H is how. So these questions make it easy to identify the main character, the important details, and the main idea. Okay, so who is the story about? What did they do? When did the action take place? Where did the story happen? Why? Why did the main character do what he or she did? And number 6 is the 1H is how. How did the main character do what he or she did? Okay, so again, this may sound familiar because we were acquainted with this in even in elementary days. Okay, so who, the character, what, what did they do, and then when and where will be the setting. Okay, when did the action take place? Where did the story happen? And then the why and the how will be more into the events. Why did the character do what he or she did, and how did he do it? Okay, the process, the actual details of doing doing what he or she wanted to do. Okay, to make it clear again, we use another example familiar to us, the tortoise and the hare. Okay, so the first W, who. Okay, the focus here is, okay, of course, the protagonist, the tortoise. What? He raised a quick, boastful hare and won. Okay, so he raced with a rabbit who is quick and boastful. So that's what did he do? When isn't specified in the story, so it's not important in this case. Where it's in an old country road. Why? The tortoise was tired of hearing the hare boast about his speed. How? The tortoise kept up his slow but steady pace, and that's how the tortoise won. Okay, while the rabbit is sleeping and resting and relaxing and chillaxing, okay, the tortoise continued to move slowly but surely. Okay, then of course, after answering the 5 W's and 1H, we can of course put them in a sentence or in a paragraph, and we have our summary. Tortoise got tired of listening to Hare boast about how fast he was, so he challenged Hare to a race. Even though he was slower than Hare, Tortoise won by keeping up his slow and steady pace when Hare stopped to take a nap. Okay, so what you'll notice here is that you don't really need to kind of put to kind of summarize it by putting it the way the 5 W's and 1H have been uh, set. Okay, so if you'll notice in this particular summary, so it first answered the who, and then it's already followed by the why. Okay, so tortoise got tired of listening to hare boast about how fast he was. What I'm saying is that the sequence of the answers can be interchanged. Okay, they are interchangeable as long as you put the answers together. Okay, so you have to choose in what particular way it will appear better. Okay, so the fourth technique is called first, then, finally. Okay, so this is an easier technique to remember, and simply looking at the title of the technique, we already get the idea that we use this in processes, in chronologies, okay, in a particular article where we have steps to take. Okay, so the first, then, finally technique helps students summarize events in chronological order. The 3 words represent the beginning, the main action, and the conclusion of a story, respectively. So it also has its own focus. Okay, so first will be asking what happened first, what's the beginning, include the main character and main event or action, then what key details took place during the event or the action, and finally, what were the results of the event or action. Okay, so here we have another familiar example, and this time it's Goldilocks and the Three Bears. So first, okay, it introduces the characters. Goldilocks entered the bears' home while they were gone. Then she ate their food, sat in their chairs, and slept in their beds. Finally, she woke up to find the bears watching her, so she jumped up and ran away. Okay, so that's first, then finally technique. Not that difficult to understand, just focus on the beginning, the main action, and then the conclusion or the end. And technique number 5 is the give me the gist of the story. So when someone tells you, give me the gist of the series that you're watching, give me the gist of the essay. So he may be asking for a very, very short answer. Okay, the story, the series is all about fidelity and infidelity and and their consequences. Okay, so that's the gist. So you can actually give the gist of your favorite book or movie in 15 seconds or less. That's how short it should be. You can use the gist method as a fun, quick way to practice summarizing on a regular basis. You may ask your friend, what's the gist of your of your story? Okay, what's the gist of the novel that you're reading? What's the gist of that particular essay our teacher has assigned to us? Okay, so it's a very, very short presentation of the main idea of a particular work. So you're not asked to retell every detail, but just the very important detail, the main idea of that particular article. Okay, so for assignment number 4, what you're going to do is to choose the letter that presents the best summary in each of the following paragraphs. So here, it will be tested, your ability will be tested, not only in summarizing, but also in reading. So that's part of the practice or the exercise involved in assignment number 4. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, there are just 8 of them. So again, read, try to understand first the paragraphs before choosing the best summary. So some of them may also be correct, but again, we are looking for the best summary in each of the paragraphs given. Okay, so that ends lesson number 4, and just wait for the link in our Google Classroom so that you may enter the classroom for lessons 5 and 6. See you there.